When you think of ancient history, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For so many of us, it's Rome. It's the legions, the emperors, the gladiators, the aqueducts. I mean, this one civilization didn't just define the ancient world, it literally shaped the one we live in right now. For 1,000 years, it was the center of everything: power, innovation, you name it. So let's dive into the epic story of its rise and its spectacular fall. We've all heard this saying a million times, right? It's all about patience, how great things take time. But what we don't always think about is what happened after it was built. And that, right there, is the punchline. For half a millennium, 500 years, Rome wasn't just a powerful city, it pretty much was the world to millions of people. So how on earth did that happen? And maybe more importantly, how did it all come crashing down? That's what we're going to get into. Okay, so where do you even begin a story this big? Well, not with an empire, not even close. It starts with a tiny settlement and a totally radical new idea for how to run a country. Every great story needs a great origin myth, and Rome's is one of the best. You've got twin demigods, a she-wolf who raises them, it's incredible stuff. But the reality? Honestly, it might be even more impressive. Rome didn't start with gods. It started with a bunch of farmers on a riverbank who built something that would outlast empires. So what was their secret weapon? It was this revolutionary invention, the Republic. See, this wasn't about one king calling all the shots. It was a system. You had a Senate where they could actually debate laws. You had citizen armies, regular folks who had a real stake in defending their home. And you had leaders who were elected, not born into power. This whole structure gave them the stability and the strength to grow from just one city into a powerhouse that dominated the entire Mediterranean. But here's the catch. The same system that made Rome so powerful also created these incredibly ambitious, powerful men. And it turns out, one man's ambition was just too big for the Republic to survive. I'm talking, of course, about Julius Caesar. His career was just this whirlwind that completely shattered a 500-year-old system. First, he's the hero of the people, conquering all of Gaul. That's modern-day France. The public loves him. Then he becomes the rebel. The Senate gets terrified of his popularity, and they order him to give up his army. His response? He marches that army right towards Rome, which was a massive act of defiance. He wins the civil war that follows. But in winning, he basically broke the Republic. The senators felt backed into a corner. They saw only one way out, one way to save the Republic. They murdered him, right there on the floor of the Senate. And they didn't just stab him once or twice, 23 times. That number, it's just so shocking. It tells you everything you need to know about the panic and the sheer brutality of this moment. But, oh, did that backfire. In their desperate act to save the Republic, they actually sealed its fate. His death created a massive power vacuum, which led to even more brutal civil wars. And when all the dust finally settled, the Republic was gone for good. And from the ashes of that dead republic rose the Roman Empire. You know, the one we all picture. This was an era of just unbelievable power. But it's a story that also shows how even the mightiest can fall. The man who picked up the pieces was Caesar's adopted son, a guy named Octavian. He was smart. He took on a new name, Augustus, and became Rome's very first emperor. He put an end to the endless civil wars and kicked off a 200-year period of incredible peace and stability. We call it the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. And this was the Golden Age. This is when they built the Colosseum. It's when they engineered these incredible roads and aqueducts that stitched the whole known world together. Under amazing emperors like Trajan and Marcus Aurelius, Roman culture, art, and law, they all hit their absolute peak. Just try to wrap your head around that number for a second. 2.5 million square miles. We're talking from Britain all the way to Egypt, from Spain to Syria. The sheer scale of it is mind-boggling. The logistics, the administration to run all that, it was absolutely staggering. But as we all know, empires don't last forever. And for Rome, the cracks started to appear. And it wasn't just one thing, it was everything, all at once. You had corruption just rotting the system from the inside out. You had a string of terrible, weak emperors that led to constant civil war. The borders were under nonstop attack from so-called barbarian tribes, and the economy just completely collapsed under the weight of it all. So you see, there wasn't a single cause. It was a long, slow, painful decay. A death by 1,000 cuts, really. Until finally, in the year 476 CE, the final blow landed. The last Roman emperor in the West was kicked off his throne. The empire was over. At least, that's the official story. Because here's the incredible part. Even though the Western Roman Empire as a political thing was gone, the idea of Rome, well, that turned out to be more powerful than ever. Its legacy is, and I mean this literally, all around us. Let's start with our legal systems. You know that fundamental idea of being innocent until proven guilty? Or the very concept of having a written set of laws that applies to everyone? That is a direct line straight back to the Roman Forum. And what about the words we speak? Languages like Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese. They're called the Romance languages for a reason. They're basically modern-day Latin. And even in English, a huge chunk of our vocabulary comes directly from the Romans. Just look around you at any major city. Think about the grand government buildings, the stadiums, the monuments. That use of the arch, the dome, even concrete, those are Roman innovations. You can see the echoes of the Colosseum and the Pantheon everywhere you look. And when you put it all together, law, language, engineering, citizenship, the idea of a unified culture across a huge territory, you realize something pretty profound. Rome gave us the very blueprint for what we now call Western civilization. Which brings us to one last big question. Sure, the political empire fell, but when its language, its laws, and its ideas are still so deeply embedded in the fabric of our world, did Rome ever really die? Empires rise and empires fall. But maybe, just maybe, Rome is eternal.